Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Wassalatu Wassalam Ala Sayyidina Muhammad bin Abdullah Khatamul Anbiya wal Mursaleen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan for attending today, and inshallah today what we're going to talk about is the structure of today's presentation, and I want it to be interactive. I don't want it to be just a lecture. Yes, I'll ask you some questions, and I'll ask what you know about different things to get your answers as well. And inshallah, by doing so, you'll understand all of the issues around what is the current situation with sex and relationship education in schools, what resources they teach in school at the moment, the types of resources they teach, what are the changes that are going to happen to this subject from September 2020, and then we're going to talk a bit about some action points that we can do as a community in relation to this subject, inshallah. So my name is Yusuf Patel, and I've been speaking about this subject for about 10 years, since 2008, and I started to discuss this when the government at the time, which is a Labour government, they were trying to make this subject a compulsory subject in all schools. And they did everything they could to try and achieve that, and it failed. Because of the election came in 2010, and this manoeuvre failed. But it was only a matter of time before they were able to do this. And so it came upon this government to do that. And I'll explain what happened and when I talk a bit about the subject matter. But just what I want to say is that these events are taking place throughout the country. Yeah, so you are not on your own. This is not one small event. Rather, we've had events all over London, in Leicester. We're going to have it in Leicester. We're going to have one in Bradford. We had one in Manchester, in Sheffield. There have been events in Birmingham. All over the country, these events have been happening to raise awareness amongst parents about this subject and what we can do as parents. So firstly, I want to talk a bit about why you as parents are important. And this is important, as a starting point, it's very important that we start to think about why we are important as parents. Because all of the messages that we get as parents every day about us, whenever the media talks about parents, it always talks about parents from the perspective of parents are not doing enough. Parents are failing. Parents are not doing this and this and this. Or that bad parent, look what they did. When the politicians speak about parents, they speak about parents aren't doing this, so the government has to step in. When Ofsted speaks about parents aren't doing enough about this, so the schools have got to step in. So the messages around us say to us that as parents we are not part of the solution, but we are part of the problem. And if we keep hearing these messages again and again, in the end, we're going to start to think, are we really, and we're going to start questioning ourselves, are we really important in the lives of our children? Do we have an impact on the choices that they make? Do we have an impact on shaping their behavior? And if the answer to that in our minds is no, I don't really have an impact on my child, then we're going to have no impact on our child. Yeah? We're going to allow the society around us to raise our children with the values of the society. So it's important when we start off this discussion, we talk about why parents are important. And the first reason, and the main reason, and if this was the only reason, this would be enough. You are important as parents because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said you are important. Yeah? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed you as parents, He did not address the same responsibility to other people, but He gave parents a responsibility which is the greatest of responsibilities. So in the ayah of the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, Qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. O you who believe, protect yourselves and your families from the hellfire. Now He did not give that responsibility to anybody else. He didn't give that responsibility to the imam or the masjid for your children. He didn't give that responsibility to the madrasa teacher or the maktab teacher for your children. He didn't give that responsibility to the teacher in the school for your children. He gave it to you and all of us as parents. And when I speak to you today, I don't speak to you as somebody who's speaking to parents. I'm a parent speaking to parents. I have 5 children, so I'm just as concerned about this as you are. And I'm a parent like you. So why are you important? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has elevated your rank and your status. Yeah? You know the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about how the child should respect and obey his parents. Yeah? After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about worshipping none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did he say? Be obedient to your parents. In the rank of priorities after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to worship none other than Allah and not to join any partners with Allah, he said, and obey your parents. This is why you are important as parents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has considered you to be of vital importance. But it's not just that. But you are also raising the next generation of worshippers and the next generation of the community. So it may be that you raise your children and 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 I raise my children. Individually, we're raising our own children. But collectively, we're raising the next generation of our community in this country. We need to understand that. The choices we make, the decisions we make about how we raise our children will determine the next generation of our community and how they raise their children and how they raise their children and how they raise their children. The values that we teach our children of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who defines for us what is good and bad. All of these values that we teach our children, all the character building activities we do with our children, all of these will determine what the next generation of our community will be. Whether the masajid will be full of people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or become empty like the churches are. Whether our next generation, whether when we pass away, whether our children will make dua for us when we die. Or whether our children will continue the good acts that we've taught them so that our status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases even after we die. So that our book of deeds that has been closed because we cannot no longer do any deeds remains open because of our children who, because we taught them how to behave as Muslims and they act as Muslims and they do the good deeds, then that reward will be upon us and it will also be things that are added to our book of deeds in the akhirah. So our actions will determine what the next generation looks like in terms of as Muslims. And you are really, this is not an exaggeration, you are the most important people in the lives of your children. And that might sound like that's you're just saying that, but actually it's true. You know, the teacher at school will teach your child maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, usually it's about 1 year. Yeah? Then after that they'll go, another teacher will come, and another teacher will come. They'll go through 10, 15 teachers, yeah, throughout their educational life. But you are that constant presence in their life. You are there from when they're born to their formative years, to their adolescent years, into adulthood, and you are there throughout their whole lives. Yeah? And so your impact is far greater than the impact of other people and other things that are temporary. Because you have a permanent ability to raise your children with your values. And you are irreplaceable. What that means is that imagine if one day, may Allah not make it so, but imagine if one day for your children, you are no longer a part of their lives. Imagine if your brothers or your sisters have to then take care of your children. No matter how good your brothers and sisters are, how good they are as Muslims, how close they are to your children, how much they love your children. Nobody can love your children and care for them like you do. That's the reality. Yeah. You know, when you think about the situation and when your baby was born, yeah, your first baby, your second baby, whichever one of your babies that you remember, yeah, the baby was born, you're in the hospital. You know, your baby has just been delivered, and you're holding that baby in your hands. Yeah, remember back and think about how you felt, that sense of responsibility that you felt. Look, me and my wife have got to ensure this baby is fed, his baby nappy is changed. You know, we fed the wives, obviously the mothers have more responsibility. Mothers who wake up in the night have many sleepless nights. Yeah, but that responsibility is shared amongst the father and the mother, because even if the baby cries, it disturbs your sleep, it disturbs all of our sleep. That concern that you have after the baby becomes a child that concern stays with us. And we have sleepless nights, not because the baby is crying, because we're worried about their future. And we're worried that concern makes our sleep, not a sound one, makes our sleep interrupted. And because of the worry and concern we have for them and their future. The reality is you are irreplaceable. You are unique in your children's lives. And nobody can replace your role. And you are the ones who, the primary way in which a child, in anywhere, but especially in this society, is going to be taught values, is through your example. Not through the madrasa, not through their schools, not through society, but primarily it's the tarbiyah, it's the development, the growth that happens, the character development that happens in the home. That's the primary way in which their mentality, the way of behaving is being built, is going to be built. Now, what I want to say is that as we go through this presentation, if you have any questions while we go through this presentation, then you ask that question when you come across it, yeah? So if I'm talking about something and then you've got a question, put your hand up, and then when I finish what I'm saying, I'll ask you, you can ask that question. I don't mind that you do that, yeah? Because sometimes if we leave the questions to the end, you might forget that question, or it might be important to clarify something that maybe I haven't been clear enough about, yeah? So don't feel free to ask questions as we go through, inshallah. So now, I want to ask you this question. What do these three letters mean, SRE?
Sex and Relations Verification.
Yes. So when I ask you these questions, you just say it out loud, yeah? But if you want to ask a question, you put your hands up, yeah? So, yeah, sex relation education, that's right, yeah. Now, if somebody who came from another country or from somewhere else far away came to this country and said, oh, I've heard about the SRE, people have been sending me WhatsApp messages and posters about SRE. What does that mean? Yeah? What is it? How would you describe it to somebody else? Like, for example, if somebody said to me, what's this microphone, what is it? I'll say, look, it's black in color, but when you speak inside, you speak to the microphone, it makes the sound louder and makes it travel far away. So I define what a microphone is. Yeah? But what is SRE? How would you define it? It's sex relationship education, but how would you define it for somebody? How do you explain what it is to somebody? What is it?
You educate someone about sex.
Okay. But where does that happen?
In the schools?
In schools, yes. So it's a subject that's taught in schools that covers this area about sex and relationship education. All of these areas that we know of. Now, all schools will be teaching this subject. And the subject has been taught in schools for many years. Yeah? And this subject has been taught in for many years. It's not a new thing. Sometimes because of people getting new information, they think this is a new subject that's been taught in schools. There are some new things about the way it's going to be taught, but this subject has always been taught in schools. Now,
that includes faith schools as well?
I'm going to talk about that in a little while, yeah? But this happens in all schools, yeah? But the changes is going to change the way it's being taught. I'll explain that in a few slides' time, but it's a good point. Keep to that point. I will address that point as well. But at the moment, when parents complain about what's being taught in these classes, what are their main problems with this subject, do you think?
I think it's a thing that we don't talk.
Okay.
It's always been kept aside.
Yeah.
Let them grow up and they'll find out.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Okay.
And it's never been spoken to. Otherwise, I wouldn't teach a boy or girl.
Okay.
They can talk about when she's getting older, married,
Okay.
All
All right.
Okay.
So you're saying that it's something that was never talked about to children, that children would find out when they became older. Well, what's the main problem when they teach it in schools? Tell me, what is the main problem with the way they teach it in schools?
They are showing too much.
Okay, so too much information, yeah? And
too much information, they're showing too much, like even pornography and stuff like that.
Okay, so inappropriate imageries and videos, okay, alright.
And different kind of gender and other kind of...
different relationships as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so different relationships like LGBT relationships. So it covers different areas that maybe we don't like our children to know about, especially when they're very young.
Yeah. I think the main thing is the concepts, the psychological concepts that they're instilling into our children, which we know is not in tune with our Islamic way of.
Can you give an example of one of those?
Well, for example, it's teaching for young children to have a relationship, and we know, even his boyfriend, girlfriend, we know from our perspective that's not right. It's now introducing that you can now question your gender, which is the new changes. It teaches the use and practical use of putting condoms on, for example, on toys, and for girls to do the same, and things like that. So
the point the brother made was that it's teaching concepts and values which go against what we believe in. So promiscuous relationships, boyfriend-girlfriend relationships, it's teaching about LGBT relationships, transgender, so that boy wants to be a girl or girl wants to be a boy, that your sex is not something that's fixed, that gender can change, boy to girl, girl to boy. And then also talking about facilitating contraception, like condoms, to encourage these activities to take place. Because the moral basis by which these things are not taught based on what we believe in, like halal and haram. These are definite things. They're taught based on very movable standards of what is good and bad. Yeah, so that's an important point. I'm going to raise that in a little while as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the resources. Yeah, and these are some of the resources over the years that I've come across in schools. Of those resources, one of the main resources that's taught in schools is the Channel 4 Living and Growing video. Now this video was at one point one of the most used resources, and it still exists in schools, but it gives you a flavour of the problems. So firstly, this was a resource that was originally used in secondary schools, and then it started to be used in primary schools. So one of the main things that parents, when they saw it, complained about was a part of the program or the video where they showed a cartoon of a man and a woman engaging in sexual relations. And so obviously in primary schools, parents are saying, why do children need to know about this? Why do children need to know about sexual relations between a man and a woman? They're 9 or 10 years old. Why do they need to know about that? There's no understanding of why is it? What's the reasoning behind that? And when parents started to see this in schools, they started to complain to the schools and also complain to the Department of Education as well. When the schools minister found out about this, and he said he first of all denied it, said, "No, I don't believe that these bad resources are being used in schools." But when some parents showed him this resource, he was he was like shocked, and he invited or he called in Channel 4 executives to come in, who were the ones behind this resource, and said, "Look, why do you have this resource in primary schools? This is completely inappropriate." So Channel 4 withdrew the resource and then republished it, recreated it, taking out those clips that we didn't like. But the thing is that some schools may be showing the old version, yeah? And so it's very important. The only way you're going to truly know what's being taught in your children's schools is how. How do you know what's being taught in your children's schools?
Speak to the school.
Yeah, that's right. So you go to the school and ask. Yeah, sometimes parents come to me and say, "Look, I go to this school in this area. It's a primary school on this road. What are they teaching?" And I said, "Look, I've got some skills, but I don't have enough skills to like look into the school and know what exactly they are teaching. But you need to go to the school and ask questions. You need to ask questions. What resources are you using in this school? Yeah, and so that's very important. There's also another resource called BBC Active Sex and Relationship Education. Now this included a clip of an actual man, woman, and child walking through a house naked, and this was being used in primary schools. And we say, look, if you want to show a young boy, yeah, of 8 years old naked, what would you generally call this? What would you call this? A video that shows a boy of 8 years old naked. What do we call this in society? Yeah, child pornography. Yeah. This is paedophilia. This is something that's created by paedophiles. Yeah. Now, because this is an educational resource, the normal rules don't apply. So you can have an educational resource that has children naked and adults naked, and the normal rules don't apply. If you had a film in a cinema, there'd be a rating system that, you know, the British Board of Film Classification, they rate films as PG or U or 12 or 15 or 18. Yeah, they have a rating system. Yeah, but the thing is, because these are educational resources, these are exempt from the rating systems. So educational resources can be used with any age children, and it's completely legal. This actual video would show the man and a woman and a child going through a house naked. This was even shown on BBC 2 at 10 o'clock in the morning. Because even the watershed, which is 9 o'clock, doesn't apply to educational resources. There's also another big push that's happening now that we need to also address. And that's the LGBT agenda in schools. Because that's taken off, that's become a big issue. And this has happened in schools for many years. But because now parents are starting to challenge this in different parts of the country, it's become big news headlines, yeah? And it's become a big debate and a big issue now. Now, the reality is that they are teaching in schools that to children that, look, you could be gay, yeah? You could be gay, anybody could be gay, you know, a child could be gay, and they'll say to a Muslim child in Birmingham schools and in elsewhere, they'll say to a Muslim child, you know, there are Muslims who are also gay, and it's absolutely fine to be Muslim and gay. Now, we need to make a distinction, we need to separate two things here. One is that, okay, we live in a society where different people live. Yeah? Some people drink alcohol, some people are gay, some people do different things, some people live in relationships outside of marriage, yeah? That are marriages are people living together outside of marriage, like boyfriend and girlfriend. Now we don't, as Muslims, accept these lifestyles. We don't accept that that's the way we should live. But we say, okay, you live your way. Yeah? If you want to live like that, you live like that. Yeah? And we're not going to harm you, or we're not going to tell our children that you should attack them or abuse them. But there's a different thing here, that if you are teaching our children in schools this, and say this is okay for a Muslim to do these things, then we have a problem. We have a huge problem. Because on the one hand, they say, look, we're teaching this subject because we want to stop bullying from happening in schools. And we say, okay, no child should be bullied. Yeah, that's fine. You should not, any child, you know, you should treat, a Muslim child should treat another child with respect. Yeah, and should not mistreat or abuse another child for any reason. But the thing is, they are saying that it's about bullying, and they say it's about just making sure that people know there are different people in our society, but they're going much further than that. So why is it that a child needs to know that they could be gay to accept the fact that other people in society live in this society? Why does a Muslim child from Birmingham who goes home and tells his parents, that teacher told me, Mr. Moffat, my teacher told me that I could be gay, and confusing young children about something that they should not even be thinking about at that age? Yeah? We don't want our children to even think about sexual matters at all. Whether he's talking about sexual matters between a man and a woman, or sexual matters between a man and a man, or a woman and a woman. A child of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 shouldn't be thinking about these things. You know, so the problem is not that we want to create an equal society and everybody should be treated equally, but rather it's how can children be taught these values? And then we're told you have to accept this. And then we're told we're the bigots. And we're told we are the homophobes. This is a problem. Now the reality is, if a Muslim was to go into a school and say to Muslim children, to non-Muslim children, Christian children, Jewish children, or atheist children, no, you are Muslim, and I want you to act like a Muslim, yeah, to pray Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and in Ramadan I want you to fast, and also I want you to read Quran, I want you to say the Shahada, and have the intention to go on Hajj. Imagine what outcry there will be in the papers, Muslims forcing their values on other people. But why is it that other people can force their values on our children and we have to stand by and watch and say, actually this is fine, you can do what you like? No, we're going to stand up like any other parent would and say we don't accept this. You know, in that Birmingham school, it's very clear that children were coming home and saying, look, my teacher made us dress up and we took part in a gay pride parade in school. Now this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable, because this is forcing children to engage in values that they don't believe in. I heard another parent who said, my child came home from school, and this was in Birmingham as well. My child came home from school, and the school forced my son to wear a dress. Now, how is that part of education? We send our children to school to learn about English, maths, science, geography, history. We don't expect them to be taught values like this, where a child will be told that, look, you're a boy, but you could be a girl. And if you want to be a girl, then that's fine. And if your parents don't like it, we will help you. That's what a school said to a parent. You know, how can it be that we accept that this is happening in our schools? Yeah. Now, there's also picture books. There are picture books which talk about different relationships, which explicitly highlight to children, about mothers, about men and women engaging in sexual relations. And they say this is fine for children to be taught as a story. Or there are storybooks which tell children that there were two penguins who were gay, and they raised another penguin. They raised the egg, and the egg became a baby penguin silo, and they raised the egg together. So that it's fine. You know, in nature, you can have two male penguins who raise another penguin, and that's why you can also have two men who raise children and two women who raise children, and all of this is absolutely fine. Or a king, a prince who goes to find another prince, who finds a princess, but he can't find a princess, so he finds a prince, and they become king, and they rule the kingdom. You know, all of these things are there to change our children's minds about things we fundamentally disagree with. And in this society, the law clearly states you can't discriminate, you can't attack somebody because of these reasons. And that's fine, we live by those laws. But the law doesn't say you have to teach children that they have to live lifestyles that we completely disagree with. And we're going to have to accept that that's how our children are being taught by schools. Also, the brother mentioned that in schools, they will teach your children how to put a condom on to a banana, or to an actual model of the man's private parts. And children will be taught this in school, as though this is a very good thing to teach children. And this is absolutely disgraceful that they're teaching this in schools to children. So 13, 14-year-old children will be taught how to put the condom on a banana. And sometimes your children will come home and not even want to tell you what they've been through. So you don't know that this is what they're teaching in school to our children. But at the heart of all of this, there's two things that we need to recognize. Whatever resources they teach in schools, the reality of how they teach this subject. They will teach this subject to say that, there are people who live in a society. Some people are gay, man loves a man, a woman loves a woman, a man loves a woman, and that they all might be in a marriage, or they might be in a relationship outside of marriage. But these are all relationships that exist in society, and they are all equal. Now, legally, in terms of the law, they may be all equal, but in terms of morality, they are not all equal. They're not all equal. We believe that which one is superior? Marriage between a man and a woman. Yeah, that is a superior relationship, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set it morally as our relationship. Similarly, the Christians who still believe in their Bible, who haven't become like the rest of society, they would agree. And the Jews who also believe in their Torah, in their holy book, they will also believe this. And other people who also believe in their books, their religious texts, and haven't given up on those religious texts, they will also believe this. So how can a school teach as fact that all of these relationships are morally okay, the same? We say no, they aren't. But a second thing is about changing the criteria of our children. Now, our children believe in what halal and haram. We believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defines what is good and bad. And good and bad doesn't change. But the school will say, no, what was good 20 years ago might not be good now. And what was bad 20 years ago might not be good now. Because the idea of what is good and what is bad changes with time. And so we as a society have to change with the change of what we perceive to be good and bad. And we said, no, this is your criteria, this is not our criteria. We have a different criteria for life, because our criteria is based on the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, and every action that we do is a worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In obedience and worship, it's obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you have a different view of life, You live your way, we live our way. Lakum deenukum waliya deen. Yeah, that's the reality. Unfortunately now, in the past they would accept that. Now they're saying, no, you have to accept more than this. And we've got to argue against this. How can it be that you still say parents are the primary teachers of their children in law, but then you say, no, parents shouldn't teach your children what you want to teach them, we will teach them what we want to teach them. Is the state become the parent, or are we the parents? That's the point that we need to raise. So I'm going to talk a bit about the changes to this subject. So in September 2020, there will be some changes to the subject. Yeah? These changes have come about because of a law, an act of parliament that was passed in 2017. March 2017 is called the Children and Social Work Act 2017. This was passed in Parliament, and that made two subjects, two main subjects statutory. Actually there's three subjects, but the third subject is not that important at the moment. The two main subjects are important. These two subjects are what? In primary schools, what is the new subject that they're going to teach from September 2020? What's it called? In primary schools, the new subject they're going to teach from September 2020, what is it called? It's not SRE. What is it? No, that's not the subject. That's the people. Yeah, people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, that's not the subject. But what is the subject that's going to be taught from September 2020 in primary schools?
Is it REL?
Yes. RE or RELED. The reason why I said RELED is because it's called relationship education. Because if I say RE, then most people will say that is what? Religious education. Yeah? Because there's a confusion. The government will say RE, what does it mean? Religious education or relationship education? The subject is actually relationship education. And this subject will be statutory, will be compulsory in all schools from September 2020. Now, when I say all schools, yeah, I mean the local community school. That means academy schools. That means free schools. That means voluntary aided schools, which are like faith schools that are funded by the government, and independent schools, which is independent Muslim schools as well, and independent Christian schools, independent Jewish schools. All schools will have to teach this new subject from September 2020. So all faith schools will have to teach this subject as well. This is the first time. It's the first time this has been the case, where a change in the education system has affected all schools. Now the problem with this is that the government says that this is a new subject. This is not going to replace sex education, sex education in schools. A school can still teach sex education, and parents will have the right to withdraw. If a school decides to teach sex education, parents can withdraw, but relationship education, everybody has to teach it, and parents cannot withdraw from these classes. You're not allowed to withdraw from these classes. Now our main concern is that, first of all, talking about relationships is the role of the parents. It's not the role of the school. It's not the role of the government. It's the role of parents. So parents should be able to teach it, and if they don't want it to be taught to their children, then they should be allowed to withdraw. That's our one concern. But our second concern is that schools might decide to teach sex education within relationship education. And if a school decides to include that in relationship education, then you will no longer be able to withdraw from that which the school defines as relationship education. Because the government hasn't clearly defined this is sex education, this is relationship education. But rather it said this is relationship education, but you can also add on to that. There's nothing which stops schools from adding on to that. And who's going to care if a school adds more? But they will care if a school does not do enough. Not too much, but enough. If it doesn't do enough, they'll be concerned. If they do too much, good, well done, carry on. So that's a problem. So if parents go to a school and say, I want to withdraw from sex education, so okay, you can withdraw. And then say, tomorrow we're teaching this relationship education, but that aspect we're teaching tomorrow, that's part of sex education. And a school said, no, that's part of relationship education. So who are you to argue with the school? The school defines this subject. And so who are we? We're parents. What can we do if a school defines it incorrectly? Who can we complain to? The government hasn't clarified who we complain to. Now, in secondary schools, there's going to be a new subject from September 2020. What's that called?
RSE.
RSE. And what does RSE stand for?
Relationship and sex education.
That's right. So the SRE has been turned around. So sex and relationship education has been will be turned into relationship and sex education. So they think that if you just put relationships before sex, then parents will be happy. It'll be fine. It's not as bad. But it's the same thing. You know, if I were to say to you today that this microphone will be called a car today, it doesn't change what it is. It's still a microphone. If you change the name of a subject, it's still sex education, but they're changing it to relationship and sex education. Now, with this subject, there's a couple of things that we need to understand about the changes. So we need to understand that there's two parts to this subject, the relationship and sex education. Relationships and sex education are separate. So from the sex education aspect of RSE, you can ask the head teacher for permission to withdraw. From the relationship education part, you have no right to withdraw in secondary school. So for the sex education part of relationship and sex education, you can say to the head teacher, I want permission to withdraw my child from this class. And then the head teacher will say yes or no. The head teacher has the final decision whether they allow you to withdraw or not. So there's no absolute right to withdraw. At the moment in schools, from what age to what age do you have the right to withdraw? At the moment, before September 2020. What age can you start withdraw and what age can you withdraw up till?
9 to 13, 9 to 12.
It's 5 till 19. The entire primary school years, secondary school years and college years. It doesn't really apply to college because colleges don't teach it, but in law you've got that right to withdraw throughout the whole of that time as parents at the moment. But by September 2020 they're changing it. Yeah? And the thing is, they are spinning it to make it seem as though they're still allowing parents the right to withdraw. You know, it's like as if somebody steals from you in the street. He takes £50 from you and he hands back £10 to you. So you think, actually, whoa, he's giving me £10, but that was your original £10 anyway. Yeah? But he's taken £40 from you. So they're taking something from you and they're giving something back, and they say, look, you should be happy with giving you back. But actually what they're giving you back is not what you had in the beginning. What you had in the beginning was the absolute right to withdraw from 5 to 19. But now you don't have the absolute right. You have some rights in primary school to withdraw from sex education, but not relationship education. In secondary schools, you have the right to request to withdraw from the sex education part, but not the relationship education part. And even then, there's one additional problem on top of that. Yeah? There's actually two additional problems on top of that. Two additional problems on top of that is, one, is that the government hasn't clearly defined the difference between relationship education and sex education in secondary school. So a school can decide to teach one sex education within relationship education and say you can't withdraw from that because there's no clear line in between the two subjects. But also, if the head teacher says you can withdraw from sex education, then you can only withdraw up to the age of 15. Yeah, up to the age of 15. That means that when a child reaches 3 school terms before they turn 16, you will no longer have the right to withdraw. But rather the head teacher or the teacher will say to the pupil, you've been withdrawn for these years, now do you want to opt in or do you want to remain withdrawn? So that becomes the responsibility and the decision of the child, not the parents anymore. Now, I was just on the radio this morning, I don't know whether you saw the news, on the radio this morning, the leader of the House, the Conservative MP, Andrea Leadsom, was on the radio on LBC. And she was speaking to Nick Ferrari about different things, and then this new SRE and RSE came up. And she was asked questions. First of all, she was asked questions about, okay, what about the right to withdraw? Until what age can parents withdraw? And she said, I don't know the details of this. You know, this is a politician who is there who passed this law back in 2017, and she doesn't know the details of this. But then she said one thing that was important. She said, if a school decides to teach these things, even LGBT type issues, then parents should be allowed to have a say in this, because to teach this too early to children is not good. And now there's a big storm. Yeah, in Prime Minister's questions today, one MP said, how dare the leader of the House say this? Yeah, we should not be promoting bigotry. And then the newspaper articles all said she's promoting bigotry in schools. But so the point is that you've got the right to, you've got some rights to withdraw in primary schools and some rights to withdraw in secondary schools from the sex education parts, but not from the relationship education parts. And so the guidance has come out. And on LGBT, just to say, on the LGBT aspect, the guidance that came out, that says that schools will be able to decide how and when to teach these subjects about LGBT rights, but they will have to teach it. Yeah. So they said schools will be able to say when and how they teach it, but not if they teach it. They have to teach it at one point or another in primary schools and in secondary schools. Yeah. Okay. Now, schools have, according to the Education Act 1996, schools have a responsibility to teach children about what marriage is. And we say that's really good, isn't it? It's good that children know about marriage, isn't it? Yeah. But what is the definition of marriage in law?
Between man and woman.
So the definition of marriage is between a man and a woman. Everybody agree with that?
Yes.
That's wrong.
You've got the civil partnership, which is different.
No, you've got marriage as well. Okay. Marriage is defined as the commitment between a man and a man, a woman and a woman, and a man and a woman. Since 2013. The Equal Marriage Act made marriage change, the definition of marriage change. Yeah? So now marriage is defined as that. So schools have now got a responsibility to teach children about the new definition of marriage. They have to. That means all schools, even Muslim schools, they are being told by Ofsted they have to teach what the law is. So they have to tell children that marriage is not between a man and a woman, not like your mother and father. That's not just marriage, that's one marriage. But also there could be a man who marry and a woman who marry. And so children are going to be taught these things in school because of these issues, because of these changes to equal marriage. This is a school in Tower Hamlets, which has got a high proportion of Muslim children. And this is a school that Stonewall has got into, very closely into, very deeply into. And Stonewall has these placards, these posters, which say some people are gay, get over it. Some people are bisexual, get over it. Some people are trans, get over it. Yeah? So these are the messages that our children are being told to believe in. So this goes away from this idea that just in schools it's just about children being told to treat people from different backgrounds the same. It's going into the realm, the area of saying you've got to accept these relationships as well. Yeah? And that's why in Birmingham the parents have said this is like the school is proselytizing around this subject. Proselytizing means da'wah. You know, we give da'wah to somebody. We invite them to Islam. Yeah? The da'wah of these schools has become you become gay. That's the da'wah of the schools. And that's the problem that we're facing. But as I said before, the issue is not just about, because sometimes we focus on the LGBT part, but actually every part of what is taught in schools is that, look, you can have a boyfriend and girlfriend. Yeah, you can have marriage. You know, you can have a marriage between a man and a woman, but you can also have a boyfriend or a girlfriend outside of a marriage. So it's the whole way that they understand relationships is completely different from the way we understand relationships, and that's what's being taught to our children. This is an example of what's happening in Tower Hamlets. So we spoke to parents in Tower Hamlets because there were a lot of issues in schools in Tower Hamlets. So one parent said, a mother said that my child, he was in year 6, and he came home from school after a sex education class. And he came home from school and he sat in the class, he sat in the living room where there was a computer, and he was doing his homework. So I was walking and I walked past him and I saw that. I said, what are you doing? Because he was seeing something that was inappropriate. He was watching a pornographic website. And so the mother said to the son, what are you doing? Why are you watching this? And he said, when I came home from, when I went to the sex education class, at the end of the class, the teacher said to me that you need to do some homework. And your homework is typing in some words. So type in these words. Type in penis and vagina. And obviously, a child typing that in will come across a pornographic website. And so when the mother saw this and heard this, she was very angry. Like any one of us would be very angry if we were ever in that situation. So she went to the school, complained to the head teacher, and the head teacher, what did he say? turn off your internet. That was his advice. He didn't say, let's go and speak to the teacher, let's clear this up, this is not appropriate. He said, turn off your internet. And then she complained to the education department, and also she complained to the local authority education department, and nobody really took notice of what she had to say. Yeah, so basically, even the school basically agreed, that the education department and the local authority agreed with the school. And so she felt that, she said, that my son's innocence has been stolen, and my relationship with my son has been compromised. I hold the school and the system solely responsible for this. Yeah, because it exposed a child to something that he shouldn't have been exposed to at that age. We're going to talk about some actions. Yeah, some actions. So what we were doing was that for the last few months, we were getting parents to complete these postcards. These are short-term actions. These postcards. These postcards was being sent to the Department of Education, and we were getting a clear message to the Department of Education to say that you're teaching about values, teaching children values is the role of parents, not the role of the government. And the government should not intervene in our right to teach our children our values. And so we were arguing that parents should have the right to withdraw their children. So we worked with an organisation called the Society for the Protection of Unborn Children. It's the Safe at School campaign, which is a Catholic organisation. And we've been working with this organisation for many years alongside them. And they're a very good organisation. So they came to us about 3 months ago and said, look, we need to do this. And I said, absolutely, whatever you need, we will support you. So they said, look, we need to get in touch with the mosques and get them to start handing them out, getting people to complete the details, put a stamp on it, and send it to the Department of Education. We said, absolutely, we'll do that. Over the last 2.5 months, we've sent 220,000 of these postcards to mosques around the country, to masajid around the country. Alhamdulillah, the response has been very good. But all of this was geared towards the vote in Parliament about the regulations, because that's the final step to making all of this statutory. And that debate is happening in Parliament right now. Yeah, that debate is happening in Parliament right now. Yeah, so by the end of this meeting today, we will know what the result is of that debate, because they will be voting on the regulations. They'll either vote yes or no, and if the regulations go through, then all of these things have been made statutory in schools, and we won't have any right to change that in schools, in terms of from the government perspective, from the legislative perspective. But in the medium term, we still have a huge ability to shape how this is taught in schools. Yeah, the reason why I'm saying this is because even the guidelines that the government has given around this subject very clearly says that parents have to be consulted about how this is taught in schools. That schools have to use the resources, taking into account the age of children and the religious background of pupils. So all of and there's lots of examples, more examples of this in the guidance document, which clarifies that parents have to consult the parents, but also has to take into account the religious backgrounds of the pupils at that school when they decide on how to teach a subject. So what we're saying to parents is that what we need to do is start to talk to schools, because schools will be starting to prepare for this right now. Go to schools and ask them questions about how they're going to teach a subject. Yeah. So the questions that we've clarified out. What will the content of the lessons be? What sort of content are you going to be using? What resources will you be using? Which organisations are coming to advise you on these resources? What is the consultation that you're going to have with parents as set out in the guidance? But the overall message we want to send to schools is to say to them, look, we need to work together as parents and as schools to decide and shape how this is taught, because we all both have the interests of the children at heart. And so if we work together, we will achieve the best result for our children. But we don't want what's happening in Birmingham to be happening in this area, or in London, or in any other part of the country. We don't want parents to be demonstrating outside the schools. But those parents who demonstrated outside the schools only did so because the school was not listening to them. That's the reality. So if the parents are listened to, then they're going to be forced to take further action. So let's try and sort this out now. In Manchester, we had an event there. Parents started to establish groups there to work to go to schools. Now, there was one school that was completely ignoring the parents, and the head teacher said, I'm not going to even see you. There was a very arrogant response from that school. As soon as that was reported in the media, the very same day, the same head teacher contacted the parents and said, look, I'll meet you. Anytime you want, come and see me. Because the reality is, the head teacher didn't want his name in the papers as being the head teacher who just ignored the parents. The head teachers don't want to be in the papers for those reasons. They want to be in the papers for saying that that school is a high-performing school. That school has these exam results. So what we need to do is work together as parents to go to schools and ask these questions. What we've done also to make it easier, we've created a toolkit, a parental toolkit, that goes into what should be asked. But before we understand what should be asked, we need to think about the way we approach schools as well. But if you approach schools and in a very challenging, aggressive way, the school will not respond. But so the first step to approach school is to approach them in a good way. Yeah? To say, look, let's work together. I'm a parent, I'm very concerned about my children, I'm interested in their education, you're a school, you're interested in my children's education, let's work together. That's the very simple message we need to send to schools. Create a partnership between parents and schools so that we work for the best interests of our children. Now, this toolkit is going to be finalized within a few days. But also what we're going to do is establish groups in different areas, yeah, where we can support parents to try and go to schools. Now, what we're going to do is create like short videos, like 5 or 6 short videos that explain step by step how you should approach schools. That will be like the toolkit, but in visual form. Yeah, that's going to be done by next week. So by the end of next week, inshallah ta'ala, make dua that this gets done. We will have a whole set of resources that equip parents to take that first step to go into schools and ask these questions and get that partnership between schools and the parents going. Yeah, so inshallah what we'll do is at the end I'll take your contact details, and as soon as all of this is made available and is completed, I'll contact you, we'll set up these groups, and inshallah ta'ala we'll start to make some change into these schools. Okay, on the longer term level, yes, we said there's 3 actions. One is the short term, which is no longer really that short term anymore, because that's gone. Medium term, engaging with schools, that's the most important thing now. And the final thing is to protect the family. You know, the reality is, our children are living in a very chaotic world. Yeah? The reality is they're going to be given lots and lots of messages by society around all sorts of different issues. Now, they're going to live in such a chaotic world, all these values are being thrown at them. They should be coming back into the home, and that home should be a place of tranquility, of love, of tarbiyah, of our values, our Islamic values in the home. Because the reality is, there's going to be a fight, there's a fight for your, there's not going to be, there is, there's a fight for the hearts and minds of your children. And that battle is going to be primarily won in the home. Yeah? So we've got to, you know, whenever I speak to other communities, they say, that you as a Muslim community, you still have the family structure that is lost within most other communities. It's not as strong as it used to be. But in the Muslim community, you have family structure. And that family structure is important. So hold on to that family structure. And so we say, you know, if you have something that's good and you take it for granted, you eventually lose it. But if you fight for it and protect it and make it strong, then inshallah ta'ala, that will be strong for generations. So we need to make it strong. And the key point here is that there's a saying that I came across a long time ago, and it's very, very, very important. It says, values are caught rather than taught. Yeah? What does that mean? That means that our children will learn more from what we do than what we say. Yeah? How we behave, how we interact with our wives, how we interact with their mothers, how we interact with each other, how we interact with other people. They will observe how we behave, and they will follow that behavior. You can say to your children, don't lie. Yeah, lying is very bad. But then when they hear you tell a lie, they'll say, but you know, my father said lying is bad, but he lies. That means that in theory we shouldn't lie, but in reality we should lie. So if you say, for example, don't lie to your children, and then somebody calls you on the phone, and you say to your wife to pick up the phone and tell them I'm not here. Now the children will hear that and say, okay, that means that lying is okay sometimes, yeah, which is we are living a life where we say Islam is our deen and our values, but in reality sometimes we will bend the rules. And so the children will see that and they will follow that bending of the rules, and they will follow that. So we need to recognize that the primary way that our values will be passed to our children is not the things that we say, is how we behave. So that comes back to the second point. You can't give what you don't have. So if we want our children to be of a particular status, that they want to be strong Muslims, and we also have to make ourselves stronger Muslims. We also have to change the things that we are stopping us from passing on the values, the beautiful values of Islam, the highest values of Islam, the strongest values of Islam to our children. That's hugely important. So family is the source of stability in the chaotic world. And you know, these issues that we're talking about, that talked about in school, about LGBT, about promiscuity, about boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, about all of these issues. You know, our children come across these things and they need answers to that. Yeah, they're getting answers from those questions in schools and in society, in the TV programs, from their friends. But they're not getting those answers from us as parents. So our children are learning all these things from the society around them, but in the only place, in the main place that they can hear these messages, these ideas, and hear our values on these issues, is actually in the home, and we don't discuss them. We don't talk about what LGBT issues, what is it? Promiscuity, girlfriend, boyfriend, do we believe this? Why do we not believe this? Why do we believe in marriage? Why is family important? You know, we need to start discussing these things with our children so that they don't become influenced and changed by the society around them. The reality is either we speak to our children or other people will speak to our children. I want to go through this example. This is a really important example. Yeah? This is the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam as narrated in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. And it's an example, and when I go through this example, I want you to think, what lessons can we learn from the interaction that the Messenger of Allah had? So the Messenger of Allah had an interaction with a young man. Yeah? So what lessons can we learn from the interaction between the Messenger of Allah and the young man? Yeah? So think about this while you're listening to this narration. So once the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in a gathering like this, with the people around him, listening to him, a young man came and approached the people and said, "O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, grant me permission to commit zina." So the young man asked for permission to commit zina. What do you think the response of the people around him was?
Very angry. They wanted to hit that.
Yeah, very angry. How dare you ask that question? Although we don't have the exact examples of what was said, we can imagine what was said. Get away, how dare you? Pushing away, get away from here. How dare you ask for such a disgusting thing? How dare you? So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, come closer, come and sit with me. And so the young man sat with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Messenger of Allah asked him, "Would you like it for your mother?" And the young man said, "By Allah, I would not like it for my mother. How could I want my mother to commit zina? How could I want it for my mother?" And he said, "The people do not want it for their mothers." And then the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Would you like it for your sister?" And the boy said, "By Allah, I would not want it for my sister. How could I want my sister to commit zina?" And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The people do not want it for their sisters." And then the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Would you like it for your daughter?" And the young man said, how could I want it for my daughter? My daughter to commit zina? No way! And the Messenger of Allah said, "People do not want it for their daughters." And then he finally said, "Do you want it for your maternal aunt, your mother's sister, or your paternal aunt, your father's sister?" And the Messenger, and the young man said, "No, I don't want my mother's sister or my father's sister to commit zina. No way, I will not want it from them." And then the Messenger of Allah said, "People do not want it for their aunts, their maternal aunts or their paternal aunts." And then the Messenger of Allah, he touched him, stroked his head, and he made dua. He said, "Oh Allah, forgive his sins and make him chaste, make him not commit zina." And it was said about that boy that he never even looked at the woman incorrectly after that. From this very short interaction between the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the young man, what lessons are drawn to your mind straight away?
What you don't want for your family, you don't want for yourself.
So what you don't want for your daughter, or for your sister, or for your mother, or for your maternal aunt or paternal aunt, you shouldn't want for somebody else's daughter, because the one you want to commit zina with is not some theoretical person, it's actually a real person, someone's daughter, or someone's sister, or someone's mother, or someone's aunt. Yeah. What else can we learn from this?
Like we need to teach in a proper way.
Yeah.
Like the Prophet said, instead of with the wisdom.
Yes.
So instead of like,
good. So using wisdom, answer it in a proper way. Don't just. So did the Messenger of Allah just give him the answer straight away? No.
He created a dialogue.
Good, excellent. So the important word there is dialogue. He created a dialogue. The dialogue means that he wanted a conversation. He didn't say, that's bad, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. He asked him questions and he made him think about those questions and those answers. You know, in the Western definition, this is called the coaching method. Yeah? Where you are trying to help somebody to reach an answer for themselves. And you're not telling somebody the answer themselves. This is very, very important. Because not only is an answer that somebody comes up with themselves more likely to be accepted by them and believed by them and held by them, but also it helps the person to establish the ability and the process to think. So enabling somebody to process to think. So it's not that he has to come to you with every single question and you give him the answer. You said you're trying to get him to say, this is how you think. This is how you think through problems. This is how you come to a solution. So next time he's in a different problem, he'll be able to use that same thinking to come to a similar solution. With our children, if our child comes to us and says, what is 5 plus 5? You say 10. The child will be happy with the answer. But if you say to them, bring 5 things, 5 objects, 5 toys, and he brings 5 toys, bring another 5 toys, he brings another 5 toys, count them all up. He says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 10, Baba is 10, Dad is 10. He'll be so happy that he's come up with the answer, because that's his answer. The reality is, children are more likely to accept the answers that they come up with themselves rather than the answers you give them. So we should create a dialogue when we're talking to our children, not a monologue, not this is the answer. Now, what did the Messenger of Allah say this is haram at any point in this interaction? Why not? Surely that should have been the answer. Yes.
The Rasulullah, he knew that he was a young man, so he would have these inclinations and these feelings, so he dealt with him in the right.
But why not say it's haram? That is an important point. A young man, recognize a young man has his inclinations. Absolutely, that's right. But why not say this is haram?
I think he wanted himself to reason.
Okay. He wanted to reason, that's fine. But he could have still said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he could have still said it's haram. Why not? Why? There's a very simple reason.
Sometimes you can do something, but you go halal and haram.
Yes.
I think there's no any choice, for that.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, that's a good answer, but there's also a simpler reason why the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not say to the boy when he asked for permission to commit zina, it's haram. What is that simple reason? Do you think that boy already knew it was haram?
Yes.
What indication do we have from the interaction to show that?
He sought permission.
He sought permission. When you seek permission for something, you already know it's haram. Yeah, it's ruqsa. You're seeking permission for something you know it's haram, and you're asking the Messenger of Allah to give you permission to do that. Yeah? So, with this, we recognize that halal and haram, the idea of what's mubah, what's permissible, what is fard, what is obligation, what is haram, what is forbidden, what is mandub or mustahab, what is recommended, what is makruh, what is disliked. All these things need to be taught to our children, need to understand all of these things because it's about their actions and their status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But just by telling them this is halal and haram, that's not enough. We've got to build layers and layers and layers of whys. Why do we do this? Now that doesn't mean that we're saying Allah decided to do it this way. This is the reason for Allah's decision. No, that's not the illah, that's not the reason. But we're talking about the hikmah besides it. Possible reasons why we can't do this as a community, why we can't do this as Muslims. Why don't we do it this way? Why don't we behave in this way? What is the impact if somebody behaves this way on another person? Another thing is, the Messenger of Allah here, he's building something called empathy. Empathy. What is empathy?
Understanding the situation.
Oh, that brother, that boy in the back. What? Do you know the answer? No, that's fine. I think he knows the answer, but he wants you to answer. So what does the brother want to say?
Just understanding their position, their point.
That's right, yes. So being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and understand their feelings about something. Yeah? Somebody's in pain. Yeah. Okay. So we've got 1 more minute and then we'll carry on after Isha. Yeah. So putting yourself in somebody's shoes and understanding how they're feeling about something. Now in this society, in Western society as a whole, empathy has been reduced over years. When somebody, in our social media reality, if somebody falls down on the main road outside the masjid, what do you think would be the first thing that somebody does?
Take the camera out. And
take the camera out, take a picture. It's almost become instinctive for somebody to take a picture. Rather than saying, are you okay? Let me help you up. Take a picture because I want to spread it to my friends and show them what happened outside the masjid today. You know, we've got to teach our children about the impact of their actions on other people and how they should, you know, this society encourages individualism. Really, just worry about yourself. Don't worry about other people. You know, who here goes to work on a tube? Yeah? You go to work on a tube, you're trying to get on a train, yeah? You're trying to queue and about 10 people go and rush past you and get on the train. You know, it's this idea of it's a dog-eat-dog world. Everybody's out there for their own interests. And they don't care about the impact that their actions have on other people. We, as Muslims, we don't believe that. We have a more elevated value than that. Our actions have impact on other people. That is a possible reason why Allah will account us if we behave to somebody incorrectly. Just because we want to fulfill our rights, we trample over somebody else's rights. We've got to, in our children, teach them this idea of thinking about our impact on other people when we do actions. Imagine if they see us, if we act to somebody in a bad way and they see us as visibly Muslim. Imagine how somebody, as a result of our actions, may be drawn further away from Islam because of our actions. Yeah. Now, so we our children, we build this mentality within them. Yeah, inshallah, I think we're going. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin Abdullah Khatim al-Anbiya wal Mursaleen. So inshallah we'll continue on from where we left off. And from where we left off, we were talking about this hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and we drew some lessons that we as parents can maybe learn from in order to be able to address some of these issues with our children. And so I think the final thing I want to focus on from this is the final actions that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam did with this young man who asked for permission to commit zina. And the final steps were that he made dua for the boy. And dua is something that we need to really think about and focus on. Because we can do all we can of our own efforts to try and safeguard our children. We can teach them our values. We can model our behavior to our children so that they understand our values. And we can do everything under the sun in terms of material actions. But unless we have the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, none of that really matters. Yeah? Because only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can help us to achieve what we want to achieve in any aspect of life. And dua is the key to that. So really the focus is on making lots of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our children. Because one of the du'as that's often answered is the dua of the parent for their children. So make lots and lots of dua for the guidance of our children, and make lots and lots of dua for us to be able to raise children who are foremost in being of the worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being siddiqeen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we continue to do dua. The second action that the Messenger of Allah did was he stroked the boy's head. Now, you know, even that touch shows what? What does it show? When you touch somebody, you touch another, when you touch your child, or you stroke the child's head, or you pat the child on the back, or you like a reassuring type, like a touch of the back of your child. What does that convey to the child? Yeah, it shows love, concern, care. Yeah, so use, even when your children no longer want to be hugged, you touch their head, or stroke their back. Just have that contact. That physical contact shows care, and actually it also helps to build relationship and with your children. And what I want to do is talk about us as fathers, and the importance of fathers in our children's lives. Because the reality is that we sometimes expect the mothers of our children, our wives, to be the sole sources of parenting and of love and of care to our children. Now, that shouldn't be the case in normal circumstances, but we don't live in normal circumstances. We live in an environment where our children's iman is really at risk. Yeah? And so we've got to put in that special effort for our children's sake. So this is a special message to us as fathers, myself included. Fathers give 3 things to their children. One is affection, the other is affirmation, and the third is attention. These are 3 A's. Affection, attention, and affirmation. So start with affection. Affection is love. Yeah? Love is a primary want and desire of children. And it's a basic building block of what they need to grow and develop and to be strong people. And so if we do not give them the love, or if they don't know that we love them, especially fathers, if they don't know that we love them as their fathers, that leaves them in a very weak and vulnerable position. Daughters who grow up not knowing that their fathers love them will try and find a father figure in their relationships. Will try and establish relationships with other people seeking that father figure, which is not a good result for our daughters. It will lead them to places and people which will be destructive to their lives. So we need to show them we love them. How do we show our children that we love them? Tell them. That is the most direct way. Tell them, kiss them, hug them. This is all direct ways of showing love. Now, when we were growing up, what was the main role that our fathers played in the household? What was their main role in the household growing up?
The breadwinners.
They're the breadwinners. That was their role. Their role was to go out and work and put food on the table for us as their family. And they used to do that to show that they loved us as their children. That's an indirect way. But you can't, as a child, connect the going out, working, coming back, and putting food on the table, paying the bills, and paying for the rent, paying for the household costs, and connect that with "I love you," because children can't make that connection. It's very difficult for a child to make that connection. The way that children make that connection is to say "I love you," to kiss them, to hug them. That's the direct way. I remember there were 2 times a year that we as a family, as children, used to hug our fathers. Just 2 times a year.
Eid.
The Eids, that's it. That's when we used to hug our fathers. And even then it was very awkward because it's not something that we normally did. And it was more of this is almost a ritual of the Eid. It's not really about love, showing the love. And you know that our fathers did that because they were brought up in families where their fathers didn't show them that love, direct love. Yeah? And in our cultures, sometimes showing that direct love and kissing and hugging and telling your child that you love them is sometimes seen as not the done thing. You don't do that. You shouldn't be doing that to your children. But actually, this is the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, the Messenger of Allah was once kissing his grandchildren, and he met a tribal chief. He was with the chief of a tribe, and a tribal chief said, "I've got lots and lots of children, and I never kissed them, I never hugged them." And the Messenger of Allah was angry at this. He said, "If Allah has taken the mercy from your heart, what can we do?" The issue is that the loving your children is the message, is the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah. Showing them in a visible way, kissing them, hugging them, telling them that you love them. I remember once I was at a relative's house, and one of my relatives said to me when I was with my daughter who's 1.5 years old, I was kissing her and hugging her, and my relative said to me, look, if you love your child too much, you will spoil them. And the reality is that is not true. Yeah? The only example, the only way that loving your children will spoil them is if you turn a blind eye to their incorrect behavior. Or if you allow them to do what they want, when they want. Or you never say no to your child. But loving them and kissing them and hugging them and saying you love them doesn't spoil a child. It makes them feel more secure and stable and loved. Yeah? And the thing is that, you know, we need to get away from some of that cultural baggage that we have and say this may be how we were brought up, and there's lots of good things in the way we were brought up by our parents and we carry on with those things, but there's some things that were not really the things that we should do with our children. Yeah? We should break the cycle of those actions and show those visible love to our children. That's the primary thing that a child needs from their father. You know, affirmation is about validation. Affirmation is about saying to your child that you have value. You are valuable to me. Yeah? And one of the main ways you show value to your child is by saying, well done, when they do something. But do not focus on the end result of their actions. Don't focus on the results of what they've achieved, because that's not within their hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enables us to achieve what we want to achieve. But focus on the effort they put into that. Yeah? Your child is learning, doing hifz of the Quran, and struggling, really struggling to memorize, making lots of mistakes, but really putting in the effort. Recognize that and say, well done, Jazakallah khair, you were putting a lot of effort in. Keep that up. If a child is struggling with something or is doing something and you want to recognize that, recognize the effort they're putting in, say that, well done for the effort. That will encourage them to do that action again and again. The positive reinforcement of an action has more impact than pointing to the mistakes of your children and saying, that's wrong, don't do that. Because that will encourage the good behaviors. And if you encourage all those good behaviors, they'll carry on doing them, and they'll continue to do them. They'll be encouraged to do them more and more. You know, sometimes we focus on the negative too much of our children, and we need to focus on the positive and building positive values within our children. You know, one of the things is that in this society, for our daughters, yeah, what is the primary value that a girl has in this society? Based on what? What characteristic of hers is seen as the most valuable? In society? No, the society doesn't value haya at all. But in society, what is the primary value of a girl?
Beauty.
Her beauty. The way she looks. That is what society considers to be the most important thing for a girl. How beautiful she is. And so those celebrities who achieve beauty by society standards of beauty, they excel in every field of life. Yeah? And those people who are not seen as beautiful, they're not so important, they're not valued as much. You know, our daughters are growing up in a society where their looks are being told to them, this is the most important thing for you. Now we have got to destroy that idea. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't look upon the external characteristics. He looks upon the deeds and the internal character, the character of somebody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why should we be happy, or why should anybody be happy and arrogant about a characteristic, their outward looks, that they had no say in whatsoever? Something that came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in different ways with the way we look, our skin color, our hair, all of those things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose those things. So why should we be arrogant about any of those characteristics? That's the height of superficiality. And in our children, we have this discussion about beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but not only that, but you can have the most beautiful woman in the world, but her character is so bad that she becomes ugly in the sight of the people. Because beauty is not just about how you look, it's also about how you act. And that changes the perception of people towards you, more than just the outward looks. Now, for our daughters, one of the ways of doing that as fathers is to use the 5-to-1 ratio. Now, 5-to-1 ratio means is that for every one time you focus on something that is about her looks, 5 more times you focus on something that she's achieved in terms of the effort she's put into something. Jazakallah khair, Aisha, for helping your brothers and sisters. Jazakallah khair, Fatima, you really put so much effort into learning that surah of the Quran. Jazakallah khairan, Amina, you did so well in, you helped your mother and you really made it easy for her today. Jazakallah khair, whatever you focus on the effort rather than something superficial like the beauty. Because society is telling your daughter, your beauty is all that matters. And you're saying no. So you need to change that by saying, talking about the things, giving her positive reinforcement on the things of value to Allah and to people. Not focus on the superficialities that they are being told to focus on. The final thing is attention. Time. Yeah? Children need your time. Sometimes we focus on giving them gadgets, giving them this, and giving them that. Look, I want to work all hours of the day because I want them to live a life that I didn't live. I want to have the best of everything. That's not a wrong thing to want better for your children. Absolutely not. But we shouldn't confuse we shouldn't give our children the things that they in their lives of commodities and products and items and gadgets. These things which have a small shelf life. The value of those things will be for a very short period of time. And the reality is that they'll forget those things. They'll forget 1 year, 2 years, those things will be forgotten. But the time they spent with you and the time you gave to them, that's something that they'll remember. They'll remember. I used to go to the masjid with my father. Yeah, and afterwards we used to go and we used to talk, or we used to go and have a kebab roll on the way home. We used to listen to the talk, we used to go home, we used to do this, we used to do that. Those are the memories that will have the greatest impact on them. The time that you gave up for them. Because your time is valuable. Giving a child £5 or a gift, that's relatively easy to do. But giving of your time, children appreciate that much more. Even though they don't give that impression now, they'll remember it much more later. That this is my father used to spend so much time, he used to do this with me, he used to do that, he used to play with me, he used to play football with me. If your children love football, play with them. If they like playing computer games, play with them. Spend time with them in different ways. That spending of time also is an investment in your relationship. Because when you spend time with somebody, you build that relationship. Yeah? That young man who came to the Messenger of Allah, who asked for permission to commit zina, he had a relationship with the Messenger of Allah. He had a personal relationship with him. Yeah? And that was because of that relationship that had been built with everybody that used to come to the Messenger of Allah. He was approachable, he used to give them his time, no matter whatever he had of his own, he had to do so many things for this ummah, but he gave the time to the people to ask him of things and he spent time with them. And that built that relationship. This is the final part. Yeah? The final part is a cartoon. The father comes to the son and says, I think it's time when I talk about sex. And the son says, what would you like to know? And this is the reality. This is the reality. That outside in this society, these messages are everywhere. And they're impacting our children. But in the home where we can discuss these things from our perspective, from our deen, from our understanding, we never discuss these things. We don't allow for these things to be discussed because we say these things are taboo. These things are not taboo. They're taboo if they're frivolous discussions that are vulgar for the sake of it. That's taboo. But when they are children coming to us and asking us questions because they want to know the answer, because they want to know how that impacts their lives as Muslims, then that is a question worth asking and answers worth giving. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to talk about the women of Medina and said, blessed are the women of Medina. The shame will not stop them, will not prevent them from asking about their deen. Because they used to come to the Messenger of Allah and ask him questions, detailed questions about even sexual matters. Because they wanted to know about the hukm of Allah, the verdict of Allah, the rule of Allah about these matters. Because they wanted to know what is halal and what is haram. What am I allowed to do, what am I not allowed to do. The reality is that we need to entertain those questions of our children and say to ourselves, look, if our children are not coming to us and asking us these questions, where are they going? Where are the questions that they have, the hundreds of questions they have in their minds over the day? Who are they going to and asking? And this is like a simple set of rules. They're not fixed, they're not prescribed, but they can help us to understand how we address these issues with our children. So for example, we need to have regular ongoing discussions. Yeah? That don't say what's the starting age that we have these discussions. You know, we need to build the values of our children from the beginning. I remember when I was younger, my mother, when she was angry with me because I used to be naughty, yeah, my mother used to say to me, when she was angry with me, she goes, when you grow up and you get married and you have children and your children disobey you, you know how it will feel. You know the pain in your heart, how you will feel when your children disobey you. And my mother would say every time I was naughty, so it was a lot of the time. Yeah? But the message was getting to me that, look, when I grow up, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have children. That's the way we're going to do it. So it's not an intentional thing, but it was a part of a conversation, or part of a rebuke, or part of an attack against me. But it was like, this is so normal. This is your normal. You know, our children are been given an understanding of normal from society. We need to set the normal. So don't start the focus of the discussion on what we don't believe in. Focus on what we do believe in. We believe in marriage, we believe in family, we believe in the relationship between a man and a mother and a father. This is the basis of family. We believe in our own rules. When the door is closed in a home, you knock before you enter. Yeah? When you want to get dressed, you're younger, when you get dressed, you go in a private place. Don't get undressed in front of everybody. Yeah? We talk about haya, we talk about our values. We need to build those values first. If we build those strong values in our children at the beginning, when they come across these other values, they're not going to be an empty vessel. You know, like an empty vessel, a jug. Yeah? If the jug is already full, yeah, you can't put anything more into that jug. That jug will just overflow. That water is in there already. It's a full jug. If the jug is empty, you can easily fill it with whatever you want. If our children's values are empty, they've got no values, they've got no understanding about what is right and wrong or what our values are, then everybody who brings another value to them and it goes in, and they get convinced by them, that will become their values. So we need to really discuss our values with our children. And how do we do that? We have conversations about these things. When they hear something on the radio about anything that you want to discuss, use that to discuss our values, what we believe in, and use it to reinforce our values. If they see behavior of people out there in society, use that as what we call teachable moment. Use the situation around them, a real life situation, to engage them in discussion about our values. This is what we need to do. Make it real conversation that we have with our children. Make the effort to have those discussions with our children. If we believe in certain values, we say, look, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the Messenger of Allah, then live those values. Now I really tell you, I was going to say this at the previous slide, when I was talking about the young man who came to the Messenger of Allah. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I was going to say, you know, sometimes when we grow up, when we're growing up, we have a celebrity or a sports person that we look up to, say, that's my hero. Yeah? And we look up to that person, and then when we become older, we maybe read the biography of that person and say, look, I want to read about the life of my childhood hero. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, probably even 10 times out of 10, the more you read about a person's life, the more you realize that person it was never worth me looking up to that person and idolizing that person. That person is just a waste of time. The more you read about the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more you love him. So when we teach our children the love of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, show how he behaved, his seerah, his life. Yeah? Talk to them about the life of the Messenger, examples from how he interacted with others, and how he spoke to people, how he conducted every aspect of his life as a military leader, as a ruler of the Muslims, as a father, as a husband. Every role that he fulfilled to an exemplary level, a level of excellence. The more we teach our children to love the Messenger of Allah, the more they'll love him, and the more they want to be like him. Really, this is such an important part of our interaction with our children. So that's what we mean by building our values. We also need to understand our children's world. You know, the Messenger of Allah, he was able to connect with that young man who came to him, because he understood what he loved and hated. He loved the women in his life. He would do anything for them. If there were any threat to them, he would die for them. He hated the thought of zina against these women in his life. So he connected a real life situation to a reality that affected him at an emotional level. At a real emotional level. We need to connect to our children's reality. First of all, we need to understand what our children's reality is. And then we need to connect with those realities. We need to, it is no point if our child has never been to a village in India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or Africa. Just use an example of a village that he doesn't have any sense of. Use the realities that he has an understanding of. If he loves football, use football analogies. If he loves, I don't know, if your daughter loves something else, use those examples to connect with their world and build our values upon that. We are a team. The mother and the father, husband and wife are a team. A team has a clear objective, and they work together to achieve that objective. In our children, we should think that our children are, we have an objective with our children. We want to protect our children from Jahannam. So we work together, husband and wife, father and mother, together as a team. When your children come to you or your wife and ask you a question, you don't have to answer straight away. Don't say, I'm not sure the answer, you stutter and I don't know, or be uncomfortable with the question because it's a controversial or a difficult question. No, say, look, Jazakallah khair for your question. I'm really happy you came to me. Look, I'll speak to you about that tomorrow. Yeah? There's no obligation to answer that straight away. Go to your wife and say, look, Ahmed asked me this question. Do you know why he asked the question? He says, oh yeah, it's because of this reason. And you connect the dots and connect the pieces of the jigsaw together, and you work out what you do as a result. What are you going to discuss with him? Who's going to do it? How are you going to do it? It gives you time to work out the answers to these questions. You are help to each other. You and your wife work together to fulfill that. When your child asks you a question and says to you, what is this? What does this word mean? Really, a really helpful first response is, where did you hear that from? But said not in a rebuking way, not in an angry way, but in a, where did you hear that question from? That will give you an indication of where their influences are coming from. Who is telling them what? Is their friend at school telling them that? Did they see it in a TV program? Where are their influences coming from? It's very, very important. It gives you a glimpse of the influences in their lives. And you can respond in an appropriate way. You know, no question is off limits. Really, if you say to your child, you can come to me and ask anything. When they do come to you and ask anything, don't respond in a negative way, because you are then contradicting what you've said to them. Say, excellent, Jazakallah khair for telling me that, for asking me that. Even in your body language, when they come to you and ask what 5 plus 5, your body language is neutral. When they come to you and ask you a more detailed question, a more difficult question, then you need to be careful of your body language, that you convey to them, excellent, Jazakallah khair for asking that question. I'm really happy you came to me. I can't answer it now, but I'll answer it tomorrow, and then we'll discuss this, I promise you, and then discuss it then. If you say to them, I'll discuss it tomorrow, and you don't discuss it tomorrow, then they'll say, okay, I told my father, he just didn't want to answer, next time I'm not going to go to him. You know, the issue of expect the best, prepare for the worst is very important. We build the highest expectations in our children, but we recognize that none of us are perfect. All of us make mistakes, all of us commit sins, and all of us fall short of the standards that we expect of ourselves and others. And it's that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more importantly expects of us. So if we can commit mistakes or we can commit sins, what about our children? So don't be so hard on them to think that they're going to be angels, and don't think they're going to be shaitans as well. Yeah? Expect the best and prepare for the worst. But that doesn't mean when you expect the best and prepare for the worst that you expect bad behavior. I'll give you an example. Once I heard this brother say this to me, and he didn't say it to me, but I heard it say to somebody else, and it really shocked me to a certain extent. He said, my mother was trying to say to me that she loved me, and she was trying to convey the point that I'll always love you no matter what. That's a good thing to say. That's a good thing to say to your child. But if she went one step further, his mother, and said, look, even if you get your girlfriend pregnant and come home, I'll still love you. Now that is wrong, because that is conveying to your child that the worst of behaviors is okay. It's okay, it's fine if you try and deal with any situation that arises at the end. At the end, like if something bad happens, you deal with it. If your child commits some sin, you say, make tawbah, repent, make tawbah, and just intend never to do that again. So you build that within them. But you don't say to them, you can do anything wrong in the world and it'll be fine with me. Because that's giving them, that's green lighting bad behavior. You should share and live your values is very important. You know, if we believe in the values of Islam, we believe in these lofty values, these beautiful values of Islam, we need to live them ourselves. We can't expect our children to live values we don't. Yeah? That's the height of hypocrisy. We need to think of ourselves as works in progress, isn't it? Yeah? We're always trying to work to better our character, better our situation. You know, sometimes we fall short of that. You know, the most important thing is if you ever are in a situation where you're telling your child something and you make a mistake, and you, so for example, you say to your child, be patient, don't swear, and you end up in traffic and somebody cuts you off and you swear, and you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah? The first thing you should do, especially if your child is there, say, look, what I did was a mistake. That was wrong. I should not have done that. And own up to those mistakes. Because that builds a greater degree of accountability to your children than anything else does. That says, look, we all make mistakes. When we make a mistake, we recognize it straight away, and we recognize it as wrong. Yeah? And that builds a very good, that will then disconnect from your child's mind the idea that you are okay with behaving in that way, even though you've told your child, don't behave that way. Reinforce. Just don't think one conversation is enough. Keep having conversations with your children, keep reinforcing them, using realities around them, using discussions that you want to bring up with them, reinforce the values that we believe in continuously. Use real life situations, we talked about that, and we talked about that before, this issue of dialogue. Dialogue is so important. Don't lecture your children, because nobody likes lectures, we don't like lectures, and they don't like lectures. Engage them in conversation, speak to them and help them to come to, like the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did with that young man. He helped him to come to the conclusion. He didn't just tell him this is the answer, he just helped him to come to the conclusion himself through a dialogue. Do that, we should need to do that with our children as well. And it's just a simple framework that we can use with our children. One is that issues about changes that are going to happen to their bodies, like puberty or menstruation, puberty for boys in terms of that you're going to go through, or menstruation, the start of menstruation for girls. They need to understand this before it happens. You know, our fiqh is very rich in connecting these things with rules. We need to utilize these examples to show them about the changes that are going to happen to their bodies. And also about how these changes are going to change them from boys to men and girls to women. And this, they're going to become, by the end of puberty, they'll become mukallaf, they'll become accountable for their actions, and this is a positive thing and not a negative thing. So these things have a time limit. They need to understand these things before they happen. Other issues that we use situations around our children as teachable moments. Things that happen around them. Use those to teach them things about our values and build our values in them through those reality and through those discussions. And honest answers. If they ask you any question, give them honest answers. That doesn't mean that if the 5-year-old child asks you a very difficult question, that you give them all the information that they need. No. We need to take into account their age and developmental maturity. How much, if you tell a child, how much will they be able to just give them enough of an answer to understand it? And then tell them, if you need any more information, come back to me and we can discuss it. So that's the issue. That's really the end of it. We talked, okay, so I'm just going to talk about things that we're doing. Yeah. So we had the postcards, we're no longer using the postcards, they're finished now. We're having these seminars. We're also going to create khutbah templates. Yeah. So Imams always tell us that these issues that we raise, yeah, that we want to discuss. You know, the people who come to these types of gatherings are not necessarily the people who need to benefit from this the most. So we're going to create khutbah templates to allow our Imams and Khatibs to address these things from the minbar. That the issue of family, the importance of family, the importance of raising children with lessons of tarbiyah. You know, these things that will strengthen the community and send very clear messages to us as Muslims in our community to strengthen ourselves. We're going to create localized parental groups. The clipboard that's going around, that's for the purpose of, we want to create local parental groups so that we can help parents to try and go to schools and create change in schools based on what the school plans to do, and then getting the parents involved so that changes, so that parents influence and change what's going to happen in schools, what's going to be taught, the resources that are going to be taught, the decisions that are going to be made. So getting parents involved in that process. So we'll support you in that. What we're going to do is, we've got like a parental toolkit that's going to be finalised within the next week, and then also we're going to do is we're going to film very short presentations, like 3 to 4 minute presentations, step-by-step guide in what you need to consider when approaching your school, what sort of questions to ask, what's your demeanour, what should your demeanour be when approaching schools, what should you take into account, what is the key factors in influencing change in schools, and how do you get parents together in a school to try and create that change. Inshallah, that should be done by next week as well, inshallah. We want to create curriculum for makatib and madaris. It's very important that if this is going to be taught in schools, we have an alternative for our children to understand these issues. Yeah. So firstly, is parents. Parents need to provide that alternative. But we know that in our community, lots of parents won't. So we need to provide outlets within our community to address this. And the key outlet for that has got to be the madaris and makatib. That's where the majority of our children go to every day to learn the Quran, and then within that bring in small lessons around our values. We want to create. What we're going to do is also do like short presentations on these areas, and even more, because this is a condensed version of the longer day event that we do. But we want to do like short 5-minute videos for parents to understand all of these issues, so that they can make small changes in their lives and the lives of their children. So really getting to people who will not attend these sort of events, people who are at home, so they can watch it on their phones or watch it on their computers or on their laptops, so they get the messages that we want our community to get, so we can collectively try and change the behaviour and perceptions of our parents. And so that's our plans. And if you want to help in any of these, then please do approach me. If you want the slides as well, yeah, if you've written your name down, yeah, and you want the slides, if you can, I should have said this at the beginning. If you want the slides, and I can email them to you, just write next to your name, and towards the left of your name, just write slides, yeah, and I will email them to you, and you can have a look at them later if you want them, inshallah, I can send them to you. So that's it for me. These are my contact details. If you want to contact me about anything in terms of the best way is either email or WhatsApp. Yeah, because if I get lots of phone calls, I'm not able always to answer those phone calls. I'm at work through the day. So if you need to contact me, the best thing is send me a WhatsApp message, a text message, or an email. And inshallah, I will get back to you. But be patient. I receive sometimes hundreds of emails over a week, and I have to get through them, and it takes a long time. So please bear with me, inshallah, and I will answer every one of them, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair for listening for such a long time, and this is your opportunity. If you've got any questions, any concerns, any clarifications, either the brothers downstairs or the sisters upstairs, then please do raise those questions, inshallah, and I will endeavour to answer them for you. Jazakumullah khair. Yes, brother.
You touched the issue of we're gonna have the right of withdraw the kids from the sex education, not from the relationship. So under what? But you said the head teacher had the right to decide.
Yes, right.
So under what premises that we can force him to accept our request as a parent, or
do you know what we need to do?
It just depends on himself.
That's a very good question. So the brother asked that, we said that parents can withdraw from the sex education part, but not the relationship education part. And that in secondary schools, it's the head teacher who will decide whether to approve or reject that request. So what can we do to make the head teacher approve those requests, so not to use the incorrect reasons in responding to those requests? Now, what we need to do is that, unfortunately, the government, as I said, the government hasn't clarified these issues, and so this has to be dealt with school by school. An important, in the important group of people in a school that define the policy of the school are the governing body of the school. Yeah. So in every school there's a governing body, and they decide and define these things. So we need to get the governing body to answer these questions. Yeah. To clarify when that the head teacher should not reject a request that a parent makes to remove themselves from the sex education aspect of our RSE, unless there's an exceptional reason, and even clarifying 1 or 2 exceptional reasons. Yeah? And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a guidance document for schools, yeah, which clarify all of these things. So when parents have the toolkit, they go into schools and ask the schools these questions, we will send to the school, or we will give to you to take to the school a guidance document. That guidance document sets out the requirements for what they should do in schools, the role that the guidance document states that parents should be involved in this process, but also the key areas of concern that the school has to answer and clarify in the policy, and advise to the governors about doing that. And then finally, the final part of that guidance document will be what are the values of our community around these issues. Yeah? So schools are educated about what we believe in as a community in terms of our values. Yeah? So we're going to create this guidance document to facilitate that objective as well, inshallah.
Sorry,
yes.
Is there a question from the sister side?
Okay. So I'm just going to turn the mic. A sister's asking, what advice can you give to parent governors? You've got the toolkit to give to the parents and the schools. What advice can you give, or what can a parent governor do to help, inshallah?
I think what a parent governor has a very, very important position, because a parent governor should ensure that at some point over the next few months, the discussion around SRE, RSE and RE will be brought up in a governing body meeting. So when that happens, the key point that the parent governor needs to make, or any governor on the governing body needs to make, is what are we doing to ensure that we're consulting parents? What is the process by which we're consulting parents? How are we involving parents in this decision? How are we taking into account the age and the religious background of the pupils at our school? So asking key questions in the governing body meeting and referencing the guidance to say, look, the guidance states this and this, what are we doing? What's our obligation towards the pupils in our school? We need to ensure that we work with parents, and getting parents to come on board to advise the governing body on what they want and what they don't want. Yeah? So the governing body is so important in that, but raising it in a governing body meeting. I remember I spoke to a governor today, and he was in a school in Newham, and he said he spoke to the head teacher, and he raised all these issues with the head teacher. And actually the head teacher at the end of it, because he actually said, okay, yes, that's fine, we're going to involve parents in this way, we're going to do this and this. If you approach schools, most schools want a good relationship with the parents, yeah, and they'll respond positively. There'll be a minority of schools that will say, no, we don't want to do this. We don't allow parents to define how we're gonna what decisions we make. So now for those schools, we can have a different strategy. But most schools, I really believe most schools will be very positive towards parents, and they'll listen to parents, and we just got to be very consistent in our approach to schools, and we just got to be there for the long term to ensure that what the head teacher promises actually is implemented. So the head teacher promises a consultation process, we get that defined and ensure that happens. And we will support you along the way. Yeah? So if you've got any concerns or any issues, please get in contact with me. We will provide you as much support as we need, inshallah. As you need, inshallah.
Yes, talk to you, Mike. Just on a personal note, I went to my son's school, they presented the information, etc. And the head teacher said, if you wish to opt out, you'll be asked to come in to have an interview. And then one key question they'll be asking is, what are you doing to teach this? What's an alternative? And so it's good to see that you've provided, but at the moment there is no alternative. The masajid are not teaching these things to our children. It's good to see that you're going to do something in the maktab. But there's also, my point here is, sorry if it's been long, is that we have a generation gap in our communities, i.e. parents to children. And if I can mention on the Shmama Begum case, her father's Bengali, lives in Bangladesh, she can't speak a word of English. No wonder why she fled to Syria, but that's a side issue. There's a generation gap. Our parents do not understand our children. Some of them, they do not speak English very well. So again, emphasis needs to be placed, perhaps on yourself. Why are we not holding classes in the masajid, getting our youth in at the right age, and teaching them fiqh, menses, when they become violent, things like wet dreams and ghusl. So this needs to happen. So do you have that information? And can we start?
That sort of thing is so important. That's why I think what you outlined and what you defined in terms of as importance is vital. The masjid is the hub of the community. The masjid should be the hub of the community and should facilitate. The thing is, the resources and stuff, are very easy. We can get those resources to you to run those sessions easily. Yeah, they're available. People have created like more than necessary. Like every community has created their own version of this. Yeah, so we can easily give you those classes around puberty for girls and for boys separate. We can give you the resources for those things. But we're talking about more substantial project around the curriculum that will take a bit more time to do. But absolutely, this is something that we intend to do, and we need to happen in our community. We do ensure that we support all of our communities. So some members of our community, for whatever reason, may not be able to do these things. Yeah. So we need to provide alternatives and fill in those gaps for our entire community, because we care for all of our children. We want to ensure our community continues on this deen. And continues to stick fast and hold fast to the obedience to Allah. So absolutely, we'll be working with lots of communities. Every masjid we come to, we'll always be in contact, inshallah. You can help us as well, because actually when I say us, it's not really in this. It's only me. So I need your help as well. Yeah. Some people will volunteer and say, "Look, I want to provide help," but they don't really provide help. Yeah. They're not there when we need help. When I need help. So if you've got any capacity to support us in any way, please do come forward and we can talk about it. You can even contact me and we can talk about what support what I need and what we can do to get this done, inshallah.
Yes, brother. From my experience, that if you, especially the Asian background parents, if they go to the school, there's a strong chance that if parents don't speak proper English, they will just give you any story and they can get rid of you, even if it's a serious matter.
Yes.
In my personal view, I think if there's an email template, or there's such a thing that there's availability that parents can use that template and can send it there, and then school need to reply in writing. But they'll be very, very careful when they're putting something in writing. So I think if there's any letter or any template, that would be really helpful.
There are templates, but really, I'm not a big fan of templates, because when you want to create a dialogue with the school in the beginning, you really need that personal contact. You need to discuss, because basically, first of all, imagine if you are in your workplace and you want to raise a big issue with your manager. The worst thing you can do is probably write a whole load of things and points that you want to raise with your manager. Really, the first thing to do is have that informal conversation with them about that. Now, if the school, as a response to that, doesn't respond and doesn't want to respond, then maybe we need to look at writing a letter. But I think there's always parents in the school who can act on behalf of other parents in the school. So it's about parents coming together and saying, okay, maybe I don't feel confident in doing that. Okay, can you do it on our behalf as a parent or group? Maybe initially you go and say, I'll be speaking to other parents and they have concerns about this, and can we work together as parents? And the parents said, we can speak to you on behalf of other parents. And if the school says, okay, but maybe not, then you can say, we have a letter that's signed by all parents that have a simple request of the school, and then send that to the school as a follow-up from that. There's always things that can be done, but I think nothing really replaces the personal touch when you're trying to address these sort of issues.
Just a quick another one. Are there any repercussions if the parents they want to take out? Is there anything school can do against the parents? Or
no. What were you thinking? What do you think?
If a parent goes and then they tell them, I don't want my child to be, or I want to be excluded, it's not as equal as you're excluding them from school or something.
No. You've got the right, for the sex education parts in primary and secondary school, you've got the right to withdraw, so you can withdraw. There's no problem with that. There's no repercussions, inshallah.
This new amendment for relationship education will be applied on home education, is not?
No.
Yes.
Home education is the only thing that's exempt. So every other type of school, including faith schools,
we can teach our children who are self.
Absolutely.
That's fine.
Yes. So homeschooling is exempt from these.
Can we choose for parallel this education, like private education for subject-wise? For example, for only math, for only for science, we don't need other education if possible. That for as tuitions.
Homeschooling you can have tuition to support you as a homeschooling parent. That's absolutely fine, as long as you don't have a setup that then they'll say that it's just a school.
What do you think about your this opinion that if you go to our children home education, and provide them education by tuitions, why this we can survive easily?
Firstly, most people won't go for homeschooling, but secondly, if you establish these sort of tuition centres, then they will start to crack down on you and say this is actually a school in all but name. That's what they've done in other places where there's been, like in some parts of London, where the people had this sort of setup, that they closed it down because they said this is we've established an illegal school. So just got to be careful on that. But as I said, whatever you decide, whether you homeschool, send your children to a Muslim school or a state school, recognize that we have the ultimate responsibility for our children's tarbiyah, for their development, and just recognize that as a starting point. And there's no foolproof way of protecting them, whether you're homeschooled, because me and my wife, we homeschool our children, but we recognize that that this is not that our children come across influences around them, whether it be from relatives or whether it be from society that they live in, wherever they are, that you can't stop them from being influenced by things around them. We can prevent some harms and we can limit some harms, but we can't ultimately. We live in a society which has these values, and so that's the reality of that, and we've got to deal with that as parents in the best way we can.
Organize the small group of the brothers, and can be run for a little bit.
Yes, but as I said, when they find out and they say you're actually doing the school here, so they'll say they'll close it down or they'll prosecute you and they say this is an illegal school, So that's happened. That's what I'm saying. It's not an easy thing. You can't just say I'm going to get 30 children and we do tuition for 6 hours a day. They say, look, that's just a school. You haven't called it a school, but that's a school.
We can organize the community welfare center as well.
It doesn't matter if it's a welfare center or if it's a house. If you establish a school in all but name, it's a school. That's the thing. We're just going to be careful about that, how we do it. Homeschooling is meant to be that you as a parent school your children, educate your children from your home. And so if you establish centres that are doing like 8, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, then they'll say that's a school. Even if you say it's homeschooling, that's not homeschooling. That's a centre that's teaching your children national curriculum subjects in all but name. And then they're going to say you have to then change into a school and fulfil all the independent school frame requirements. But that's fine. Any other questions, inshallah?
Brother, in Birmingham and some Jewish school as well, they are just get right for the opt-out. This is just rumor, or some people they go actually right for the opt-out, or this is just people. I just saw the social media. So I read in Facebook.
No, nobody's got opt-out. No, these rules will apply to everybody. I'll give you an example. In the beginning, the people in the Jewish community who were very supportive of these changes, because in the Jewish community, most of the Jewish children are schooled in Jewish schools. There's lots of Jewish schools, and they send their children to Jewish schools. And so when this was going through Parliament, one of the head of the Orthodox schools, she supported these changes because she thought that Jewish schools would be exempt from it, because she thought we've got some right to be exempt from it. So she supported it. I went to Parliament. There was an event that happened in Parliament in last year, and she spoke at that, and she said, this is very good, we believe in this, because our children are going to be protected. And I was thinking, are you serious? You only care about your children, you don't care about other people's children, so you're supporting this? And now, I just found out about a month, 2 months ago, that she's now opposed to these proposals that she supported in the first place. Because she knows now that Jewish schools are not going to be exempt from those proposals. And so now she's coming and saying, look, we need to organise, we need to sign this letter. I said, forget it, you're one of the people who support this in the first place, and you dug the grave, and now you're telling me that why is this grave being dug? You were the ones who were part of that. And so the problem is that there is no exemption from any community. Initially, all faith schools were told that they will have the right to teach a subject according to the faith values of that community. But then only 3-4 weeks ago, the head of Ofsted, Amanda Spielman, said very clearly that all schools, including faith schools, will have to teach about LGBT rights, and there's no exemptions. So the issue is, this is a problem for everybody now, because now they're trying to force their values upon everybody. Yeah.
Just a very quick insight from you. What I'm very disappointed the way we Muslim, we proud ourselves about Islam, but unfortunately we actually let down Islam, because what you've been touched in regarding to this matter, massages, they're failing because they're not teaching this subject to our kids. And also, we parents too, we play a part.
Yes.
We are failing Islam because it's very sensitive subject like this, which is going to affect our children. Look at how many people around here. We are less than 20 people. So,
I think so that's a very good point. What we can say to this is that, you know, sometimes we look at the things that we're not doing right. Now, if we just say, and if the community just says we're not doing this right, and that's an attitude that we're just not doing it right. But if that's not really helpful for the community. If the community says we're not doing this right, but let's change and do it right, then that's a positive thing. If this thing wakes up parents, then that's a positive thing. Now, all of you people here who attended today have to take this message out to people who didn't attend, and speak to them and say, look, we went to this event, this is the change that's going to happen. All of you are now spokespeople for this campaign. It's not me. This is not my campaign. This is a Muslim community campaign. This is not my slides. If you want to take the slides and say, look, I want to go and speak to other people about this, can you call me and we speak over the phone and explain the slides properly so I can deliver it to other people? I will say, excellent. People have done that. In Bradford, people call me and say, look, I want to deliver these slides as well. Can I do it? I said, absolutely, I'll email them to you, and then I want to explain to me, okay, 20 minutes, we'll go through the slides, I'll explain to you, you deliver your own sessions. I'm happy for that to happen, You deliver it your own way. So you people here, alhamdulillah, who did attend, may Allah reward you for that. You can go to other people and remind them of their responsibilities and support them to understand these issues, inshallah. But there's no more questions. As I said, you're always free to contact me. The best thing is WhatsApp or text message or email, and inshallah I will endeavour to get back to you, inshallah. Jazakumullah.